we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming with a special edition of WUFT News. We're already seeing intense winds and heavy rain as Hurricane Milton moves quickly through the Gulf of Mexico. I'm Bernado Montas.
And I'm Jack Meyer. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is holding a press conference about Hurricane Milton, its damages, and what you need to know while we wait the storm out. We go to the governor, who is live now.
Patrol will be standing by to escort fuel trucks to service stations so that people will have access to fuel as they return to their homes. The Florida Department of Transportation is staged and ready to go as soon as the storm passes. They have 156 bridge inspectors, which will go to clear the bridges, 402 cut and toss personnel, and over 1,000 generators and 350 pieces of heavy equipment and trucks. We have massive amounts of search and rescue equipment and personnel standing by. And we hope that there's not a big need for that, but we're prepared for that. And that's not just our state and local. It's also our National Guard, our State Guard. We have about 9,000 National Guard personnel between Florida and other states. We also have Florida Highway Patrol, Fish and Wildlife, Department of Law Enforcement, and of course our Florida State Guard. There was a lot of questions about pre-staging linemen, which is our practice here in Florida, given that you have a lot of linemen working for Hurricane Helene in places like Georgia and North Carolina. I'm happy to report that we have over 50,000 linemen that are in the state of Florida, and as soon as it's safe to do so, they will commence with power restoration. We're already seeing power outages. You're going to continue to see a lot more power outages over the course of tonight and into tomorrow morning. Now, at this point, it's too dangerous to evacuate safely, so you have to shelter in place and just hunker down. Category 3 storm for most places in Florida, particularly newer construction. Likely the building is going to be able to withstand it. But if you start to get in a situation where trees are snapping, power's popping, you do have to treat it like a tornado. And then if you are in a tornado warning, that's a duck and cover in a place that's safe in your structure. Those can be very, very dangerous, even if you are inside in cover. Stay inside and stay off the roads. Floodwaters and rushing storm surge are very dangerous, and I would say that's even more so in spite of everything the state did to help these local communities hit by Helene remove a lot of debris, and they did move a lot of debris over the last 72 hours. You're going to have new debris created, and you still have some of that old debris in some of those places. So there's going to be hazards in the storm surge and in the flood waters. Stay put until the storm is passed. If you are in Sarasota, Manatee, some of those areas where the eye of the storm is going, it may be where things calm down for a minute. Just understand that means you're in the eye. It's going to go back and get really nasty very soon. So don't go outdoors until it is confirmed safe. You can listen to your local emergency management officials about that one. Power outages are going to happen, as I mentioned. So please, if you're using a generator, make sure that you're using it safely. Do not run the generator inside your home. That can be fatal. Make sure it's outside the home at a safe distance from windows and doorways. If you see dangerous conditions, please report those to your local authorities so that they can help protect people and mitigate it. So the storm is here. It's time for everybody to hunker down. I know we've got massive amounts of resources that have been prepared for this storm. People are tired because of having to deal with Hurricane Helene, and yet all I've seen is people just dig deep inside and say, we're not going to be denied, we're going to get the job done. So I really appreciate everybody that's worked so hard on the heels of Helene to prepare for this storm and to be ready to go. And you will see that in action very shortly as this storm passes. Okay, Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor, for leading us through this. Appreciate your support. Conditions across the state continue to deteriorate as Hurricane Milton approaches landfall on Florida's. No more Michael. No, sir. No, sir. As Hurricane Milton approaches landfall on Florida's west coast, many areas are already experiencing life-threatening storm surge or life-threatening tornadoes. Please make sure if a tornado warning comes in, especially on our east coast of Florida, we have certainly had a lot of tornadic activity over there with confirmed radar signature, confirmed tornadoes. We do have Virginia Task Force 1 Ohio Task Force 1 and Miami Task Force 1 going into those areas to help with those structural collapses that have happened. We're receiving somewhere in the neighborhood, this is really, really rough numbers right now, but about 125 homes that have been destroyed, most of them mobile homes in senior communities. So we're trying to get into Florida's most vulnerable to make sure they're taken care of. If you have not already left, as I just said, as the governor just said, you need to stay inside, stay safe, and stay put. Make sure that you're getting to a central area of your home, that you're getting as low as you possibly can. That is, if you have a single-story residence and no storm surge, you want to get as low as you possibly can. I had this question asked of me earlier. Do I go to the bottom of the house if I got storm surge? The answer is no. If you've got 2 floors, you need to go to the lowest part of the 2nd floor to escape the storm surge. Please do not. If you have storm surge coming in, please just do not go to the lowest level of your home. Do not attempt to leave your home or drive during the storm. Roads may be flooded, blocked by debris, or have down power lines. Please do not risk it. If you hear, as the governor said, if you hear trees snapping, that means that there is going to be flying debris. You should seek shelter immediately and treat it as if it's a tornado. Protect yourself from flying debris by putting household items such as pillows, heavy coats, blankets on top of you. There may be a point where you think the storm is over. If it goes from absolutely horrible and terrible to absolutely nothing, then you are most likely in the eye of the tornado. Please stay in place. Do not come out. We are anticipating power outages, as the governor's already mentioned, with this storm. Take time now, if you still have power, to keep those electronic devices plugged in and keep the charge full. If you lose power and are going to use a generator for backup power, please use it safely. You've heard the governor and myself say this. Keep it 20 feet away from the doors and windows of your home. Make sure you wait 20 minutes for it to cool down before you refuel it. Make sure it's on a clean, dry surface. And then be sure to have a carbon monoxide monitor in your home. After the storm has passed your area, it is critical that you listen to local authorities for guidance on when it is safe to go outside or to return home. Do not venture out. Hazardous materials, debris, and flooding could still be present. Do not attempt to clean up the debris by yourself, especially fallen trees or power lines. If you see a dangerous condition, please report them to your local authorities utilizing your 911 lines or non-emergency lines. Residents needing information can continue to call our State Assistance Information Line, which will be open for most likely weeks. That number is 1-800-342-3557. That's 1-800-342-3557. Please follow the agency on X and Instagram at FLSERT and on Facebook at FDEM. That is the best way to go and catch up on latest up-to-date information from the division. If you do not have access to that, but you have access to the internet, please make sure you go to floridadisaster.org/updates. Floridians, we are with you. We will be with you. The state of Florida is leading the way on this charge. Please know that we're coming as fast as we possibly can. There's going to be places that we just cannot get to until the winds die down. But as I've already mentioned, there are strong winds. There are banding rains. But we have the men and women of Florida Task Force 1 out of Miami-Dade, as well as members from the Ohio and Virginia Task Force going into harm's way to help you out. We will continue to do that all night long. I will be here throughout the night along with my team. Governor, it's been a pleasure working with you to this point, but I also want to say thank you for your leadership, and I know that you're not going to go anywhere anytime soon, and I appreciate your leadership. Thank you, sir.
So we are staged with massive amounts of search and rescue assets, not just with the cities and counties and their considerable resources, all the state assets for our state agencies and National Guard, as well as urban search and rescue teams. And so we will be ready to help people who are in harm's way, and hopefully we don't have a lot. I know a lot of people did heed the call to leave, but that will be a priority to save lives. We also have a record number of people there for the restoration of power. These linemen, people love seeing the linemen coming in on the interstate. It's a great sight. They will get to work, get their power resumed as quick as possible. And then we have massive amounts of fuel on standby that we can use, but we also want to make sure these ports get up and running. I mean, we'll see what the damage is to Manatee and to Tampa. We have been discussing, and Kevin and his team have been discussing with our federal partners like the Army Corps and some of these agencies some expectations about getting these ports back. And I think there's a difference between kind of Florida expectations, which is like we get this stuff done quick, and maybe how the federal bureaucracies have typically worked. But I think that we have had very good conversations. I think there is a sense of urgency with some of the federal agencies as well, but we want to get these ports back open as quickly as possible. We're going to have to assess some damage. Now, the track of this storm, the fact that it is Sarasota, perhaps the Port of Tampa is not going to take a major hit like it would have if it was a direct impact, but we'll see. Manatee is probably going to be a little bit closer to where it's getting some of the big impact, but we think it's really important that all services are be able to resume, and we have contingencies to be able to get fuel in where it needs to go, but it'd sure be a lot easier if we just get that coming into the ports. And so those are all going to be priorities from here on out. So if you are watching this, just hunker down. If you're in the path of this storm, it's dangerous outside. There's going to be a lot of hazards. Even when it passes, if there's floodwaters, be very careful about any of that. Help is on the way. We're going to get everyone back, get everyone up on their feet again, and we'll mitigate the damage as best we can.
The president said that he has spoken with you. Have you talked about meeting?
As you just heard, Governor DeSantis shared that there are over 9,000 National Guard units ready to help those affected by Hurricane Helene. There is a risk for tornadoes and fallen trees, as Milton's intense winds lead to potentially dangerous flying debris. So stay safely indoors as you wait out the storm and be aware of weather advisories.
Kevin Guthrie says to please stay in place and do not stay in the bottom of the house to escape the storm surge. Do not attempt to leave because of downed power lines. Do not risk it. Remember to stay away from any doors or windows in your home and use your generator responsibly.
We've seen tornadoes in several areas of Florida today, with a few along I-75. You can see one tornado touch down on I-75 in Broward County. The National Weather Service describes this twister as a dangerous tornado. Florida DOT cameras are catching this severe weather from Hurricane Milton. The tornado did cross the intersection but did not hurt anyone or impact any populated areas. These tornadoes are shocking to see, and the damage is devastating. You can see the destruction in Fort Myers with debris on the ground and houses bracing the strong winds. We expect to see more damage throughout the night, and we'll continue to update you.
Now is the time to make sure your devices are charged while you still have power, as power outages are expected to increase as Hurricane Milton brings severe weather. Take a look at your screens and you can see power outage reports have already been pouring in as Milton's outer bands reach across our state and the eye nears landfall on Florida's west coast. Florida Power and Light wants customers to be prepared for expected outages, saying Milton's catastrophic conditions will likely cause significant damage and restoration challenges. But FPL says its workforce of over 17,000 employees is ready to respond as soon as it is safe to do so. Here in Gainesville, you can contact GRU to report power outages and downed power lines.
We're continuing to track the hurricane's path and monitor its effects, as Milton is expected to make landfall around 11 p.m. tonight.
UF forecaster Matthew Clark joins us now to share the latest updates from the National Hurricane Center and what to expect from this historic storm. Matt, Milton is nearing landfall. We're expecting heavy rain, wind, and damage.
Yeah, no major updates from the NHC as of right now. It's still a Category 3 with winds up to 120 miles per hour just off the coast of Florida, the west coast of Florida. It's right parallel to Sarasota, looking like it's going to make landfall near Bradenton, the Sunshine Skyway. In that area, life-threatening storm surge, winds, and heavy rain is very likely in that area. Thursday morning, it's off into the Atlantic coast as a Cat 1, so as it moves across Florida, it's still a hurricane, and it doesn't become past a hurricane until it's all well off into the Atlantic as a post-tropical depression and gets out of our area by the weekend. Central pressure is 952. It's moving pretty fast at 15 miles per hour right now. Storm surge in Tampa, in the Tampa areas, likely expected Sarasota, Siesta Key up to 13 feet, especially if the eye of that storm is just to the north of it. All that wind and rain is going to get pushing all that water into Sarasota and Siesta Key. I overlaid the track. I drew a center. Let's assume the center makes landfall right over Bradenton. Counterclockwise circulation around the storm. You have all these winds and rain and storm surge getting pushed into Siesta Key, Sarasota, Manatee County. Still life-threatening storm surge north in Tampa. There is an offshore wind, which would be the best case scenario for Tampa, it being south of there. However, with the winds, the rain, it's still a life-threatening situation. You need to be inside at this point as we are nearing landfall really soon. For our area, though, 1 to 3 feet from Cedar Key up through the Big Bend, which Helene had way more impacts than Milton. Milton kind of Helene paralleled the coast. Thankfully, Milton is down south further than our area. Crystal River could see 3 to 6 feet of storm surge. Winds going to be a major issue for the Suncoast, Tampa, Sarasota, and Port Charlotte. For us in our area, though, sustained winds of tropical storm force winds, 39 to 57 miles per hour here in Gainesville. The further south you go, the stronger those tropical storm force winds are. Ocala could see some strong tropical storm force sustained winds and hurricane force wind gusts. Wind field is very large with Milton right now. This white is all hurricane force winds, and as it makes its way towards landfall, this says 1 a.m. still, but it is going to be sooner than 1 a.m., likely 11 p.m. tonight. Still large wind field as it makes its way across the state. We could have those tropical storm force sustained winds still as we head into early parts of Thursday morning, and those winds are going to remain constant as we head into early Thursday afternoon. Those winds are going to die down as we head into Thursday night when the storm makes its way off into the Atlantic. Rainfall has been the major issue for us so far. There was a tropical low that moved its way across the state just a few days before Milton did. So we've already seen upwards of 2 inches of rain over the past 3 days in Gainesville, 3.5 inches in Ocala, 2.9, about 3 inches in the Villages. Spring Hill, the further south you go, the more rain they got. So this ground is already saturated, which means any additional rainfall is just going to run off. Trees could be loose from the soil. Those roots could collapse trees with any sort of wind. So it doesn't need to be strong hurricane force winds to collapse trees because that soil is so wet. It's been like this on our live radar since about 8 a.m. this morning with gusts of heavy rain, some light rain, some heavy rain. Ocala seeing some heavy rain right now. Gainesville as well, some light rain outside. Winds are going to start to pick up though as we head into our Thursday early morning hours. Infrared satellite of the storm is very disorganized right now because of all the dry air and wind shear that it is developed in right now. It's taking it apart right now. It's still strong category 3 though, still very serious storm. Here's the dry air I was talking about. You can see part of this being dragged into Milton right now as Milton is making its way towards landfall. And the eye is a very large eye. That's because all this dry air down south is not allowing Milton to have much rain down here. However, most of these wind gusts are 115 miles per hour still, sustained Category 3 hurricane force winds. Now, it doesn't make landfall until the minimum central pressure crosses land. And right here is our minimum central pressure. It's this tight little circulation. So as that makes landfall, that's when Milton will officially have made landfall. Part of the eye wall is already covering Bradenton, St. Pete, and Tampa, seeing life-threatening winds and storm surge down south there. Future track, Milton still off the coast. We're going to start to see that landfall in the next couple of hours as it heads through our state on early Thursday morning. Going to have that rain here in Gainesville continuing through Thursday around midnight up until about Thursday around 1. Could have a couple lingering showers from Milton, but the tropical storm force winds are going to remain pretty constant as we head into the early Thursday afternoon hours. Extreme wind warning was issued a couple hours ago. It's active until 9:30 in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Manatee County. Sustained winds of 115 miles per hour. These are life-threatening winds. It's almost as if a tornado the size of 3 counties is making its way towards this area right now. So need to be inside, hunker down, hide from the wind, get away from the storm surge. Most of the state is covered in a hurricane warning from Milton. Down south, tropical storm warning, and up north here, we still are in a tropical storm warning, but that hurricane warning does expand up into Jacksonville. They could see some storm surge there once it crosses the Atlantic side. The severe risk, this was from the Storm Prediction Center earlier today. They had a moderate risk spanning well across the Space Coast down to Fort Lauderdale and up through Orlando, and it lived up to the hype. We saw over 100 tornado warnings in the span of just a couple of hours. Have this loop. This is over just a few hours. You can see all that red. These are all tornado warnings from Milton, and I froze this one. There was once 17 tornado warnings at once at 2 p.m. This tornado outbreak has subsided as we've headed into these later night hours, but it's still very, very we have not seen a tornado outbreak like this in about a century. It's crazy. We've seen wedges. It was bad earlier. Conditions are going to near their worst as we head into Wednesday evening, and as Milton makes landfall, as it heads south or north towards Orlando, that's when we're going to start to see the worst rainfall. Milton landfall likely 11 p.m. As we head into the Thursday morning hours, the rains are going to be lighter, but because we're going to be on that northwest west side of the storm, we're going to be getting hit by some pretty stronger winds. The ground is already saturated, and so those trees could be coming down. Campus Cam, we have winds from the northeast around 18 miles per hour with gusts 34. Those winds are going to increase as we head into the later hours. 71 degrees. We had an inch of rain in the past 24 hours from Milton. But as we just head into the rest of the week, Thursday, going to see some of the rain. And we do have a nice week shaping up ahead at least. That is some good news. Saturday and Sunday looking to be pretty nice.
Thanks, Matt. You'll be sure to stay tuned with WUFT News as we provide updates on Hurricane Milton's approach. You can stay up to date on WUFT.org and WUFT FM 89.1 and 90.1.
We will be back at 10 p.m. with more updates. Until then, please remain inside and shelter in place accordingly. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.